I'm going to tell you a story about a guy that I met that really changed my outlook on business and the way that I think about planning a new business. He was a horse trader, and at the time I was the owner of a billiard room called Billiards Playground in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I had graduated college and worked there as a manager and a pool player for a long time, and then I bought the business. So it was my first real foray into being a small business owner, and I really thought I was the nuts. I thought I was great at it. Unfortunately, in the summertime, nobody wants to come indoors and play pool. So it was really dead in the summertime. Like, no customers would come in all day. And it was one summer in June, I think. I was working the counter myself. I worked lots of long hours in the summertime because I didn't have enough money to pay employees to come in and do that work in the summertime. So I was working by myself. So one sunny afternoon, I was in there by myself. I think I was slicing tomatoes at our little food counter. And a guy came in, had parked in the parking lot and came in and walked up to the counter, and he wanted a cup of coffee. So I poured him a cup of coffee and I charged him 50 cents and put it in the cash register, and he walked away. He didn't want to play pool. He just wanted to kill some time for a little bit. And in the front of the pool room, we had a little restaurant and cafe. And on the walls, it was called the Hall of Fame Cafe. And on the walls, there were pictures of professional players and autographed memorabilia and stuff from the history of pool and billiards, things that I had collected over the years in the industry and as a pool player. And so he walked around looking at all that stuff and the autographs and the pictures, and the whole time he was doing it, he was talk. And I wasn't being rude to the guy, but I wasn't really paying any attention to what he was talking about. You know, I was just doing my thing and kind of bored. So about 5-10 minutes later, he came back up and had his empty cup, and he wanted a refill. So I gave him a refill and charged him 25 cents. Keep in mind, this was in like the 1990s. This was before Starbucks and all that kind of stuff and $5 coffee. So I charged him 25 cents for his refill coffee. And I said, "So who are you and what do you do?" And he said, "Oh, I'm so-and-so." I don't remember his name. He says, "I'm a horse trader." I shook his hand and I said, "Oh, horse trader, you know." I said, actually, what I said, I'd heard the term horse trader be somebody who just buys and sells anything, airplanes, cars, you know, whatever. I said, "Oh, what do you buy and sell?" And he said, "Horses." "Oh, okay." I said, "You do all right with it?" I said, "Is there any money in that?" And he said, "Well, you've heard that 95% of the money is controlled by 5% of the people, right?" And I said, "Yeah, something like that, you know." And he said, "Well, 95% of that 5% own horses. Who are your customers?" And I stood there with what, you know, must have been a dumbfounded look on my face for was probably only about 10 or 15 seconds, but it felt like half an hour because those words were bouncing around in my head. 95% of the money controlled by 5% of the people, but 95% of them own horses. Who are your customers? And I stood there with his quarter in my hand, looking around my empty pool room, thinking about who my customers are. They were high school and college kids, too broke to go do anything else, so they would rent a pool table for $7 an hour, or they'd put quarters in a pinball machine or in the jukebox, or they'd come up and buy a pop and a bag of chips for $1.50. And I thought, yeah, you know, who are my customers? They haven't got any money. What am I doing? What am I thinking? And then I got thinking about the stack of paychecks that I had in the back of my desk drawer. See, all summer long, I was so broke that I didn't even have enough cash flow coming in to cash my own paychecks. So I would save up my paychecks and stick them in the back of the desk drawer. And then in the wintertime, when things would pick back up and business was good again, I'd start pulling those checks out and cashing them every couple of weeks. I needed to be able to pay my other employees to be there when I couldn't be there. And I got thinking, I said, you know, maybe I could learn something from this guy. And so I still had his quarter in my hand. I gave it back to him. And I said, "Why don't you have a seat in that booth over there? I'm going to pour myself a cup of coffee and sit down and pick your brain because I think I can learn something from you." And so we sat over in that booth drinking coffee for an hour or so, and I learned that, yeah, he was a business broker basically for horses. So he didn't actually buy and sell them, he just brokered the deals. He said he knew people over here who had horses and bred horses, people over here who wanted horses, and he put the two of them together and made a commission. And he never touched a deal that wasn't 6 figures. He said he drives around in that Cadillac out in the parking lot making deals all day and making money just based on what's in his head. And I was just blown away. I thought, wow, somebody can make a living doing that? I'm in the wrong business. I need to get out of this thing. And so it was within about 1.5 years that I closed that billiard room, sold it, sold all the assets, and moved on. And it took me a while to get to the point with a new business that met some of the new qualifications that I learned from that horse trader and from my other business mentor, my Uncle Mark, who told me you want a business with no assets, no inventory, and no employees. That gets away from that overhead, because that was what was killing me at that billiard room, was the huge overhead. Because I had a big, huge building. I had a 10,000 square foot building that I had to heat and cool, and I had all these employees, and it was just this big monstrosity to make a little bit of money in a short period of time. And it just wasn't sustainable. So later on, I built my energy rating business, Great Lakes Home Performance, and I focused on builders who had great customers, who were building big, expensive custom homes, builders whose checks don't bounce, builders who, when they ask a question and it's seeking advice, they would actually follow that advice and do it. I remember sitting with one of my builders that had retired, and I had tested his house, his retirement house that he built for himself. It was the final house that he built. It was beautiful. And he and I sat down and had a steak and a beer afterwards, and we talked about business and things, and he talked about his last development that he did was, I think, 60-something condominiums that were in the neighborhood of $500,000 a piece. And he said, you know, out of all of those condominiums that I sold, he said, I think I only had to deal with 2 people that had a mortgage. Everybody else that bought those things paid cash. And I said, it's because you have customers like that I have customers like you. It's all by design. It's not by chance. I sought out those customers and I set up my business so that I was catering to them. I wanted to deliver the absolute best service that I could to an elite group of business owners. And you can do the same thing with your business. So the lesson here is, number 1, pick a customer base for your business that has money, that has the ability to take your business where you want it to go. And the other thing is, you can't sell crap. You've got to do the job. You've got to follow through, because that higher end customer is going to be a more demanding customer, but they're also going to reward you for superior service like nobody else can. So that's my horse trader story. I hope that you learned something from it the way that I did. It was a real aha moment, epiphany for me that really changed the outlook that I have on business and customers and planning and strategy. For more information like that, be sure to subscribe to this channel. I'll be posting videos every week just like this. You can also read more articles at smallishbusiness.com, including an article about my personal business history that has my previous businesses and what I've done over the years. So I look forward to talking to you again. If you have any questions or you'd like some individual coaching, don't be afraid to email me. You can contact me at the contact button on smallishbusiness.com. Be sure to subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you again soon.